Good to have you on International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. International Tit-Bits is a show where we bring you news, events, and stories from across the world. Here, we ensure that the real on-time news are packaged for the viewing pleasure of the people. And for today, we have a number of issues. Opposition leader hospitalized week into prison hunger strike. Members mistreat elders PCEA to go to care home. Government suspends aid to Burkina Faso.
Catholic Church open to
Welcome back. In case you were just joining us, this is International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. Now the rest of our stories. Senegal's jailed opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, who has been on hunger strike in prison to protest criminal charges against him, was hospitalized on Sunday, his party said. Sonko was in prison last week in advance of criminal proceedings against him on charges of calling for insurrection, conspiracy against the state, and other charges. The reason for his hospitalization at the main hospital in downtown Dhaka was not immediately clear. Prior to his imprisonment, he was in good health and had no known illness, said the statement from Sonko's now-dissolved Patriots of Senegal party. Sonko announced July 30th on the platform X, formerly known as Twitter, that he would start his hunger strike. The announcement came a day before a judge in the capital of Dhaka ordered his imprisonment. The latest charges against Sonko came weeks after a judge convicted him in a separate case of corrupting youth and sentenced him to 2 years in prison, which ignited deadly protests across the nation. Last week, at least 4 people died and several were injured in fresh protests after Sonko was detained in a prison just outside Dhaka.
Vulnerable residents at an elderly care home near Nairobi, Kenya's capital, have been mistreated and neglected, investigation has revealed. Secret filming shows staff members physically mistreating residents dumping food directly onto tables without any plates, and leaving medical conditions untreated. Hit her on the buttocks, beat her, a member of the staff urges a stick-wielding colleague at the Presbyterian Church of East Africa to go to care home for the aged, about 2 kilometers west of Nairobi. The undercover footage shows that moments before, 3 staff dressed in purple uniforms surrounded an old woman by a metal gate flanked by sheets of corrugated iron at the perimeter of the home's garden. "Where were you heading to on that side?" asked one of the staff. "You were called back and you refused to come."
France has suspended all development aid and budget support for Burkina Faso. The announcement comes after the military government in Burkina Faso said it would regard any armed intervention against the coup leaders in neighboring Niger as a declaration of war. The military government in Mali has taken the same position. It comes as a deadline by the West African bloc ECOWAS for the military coup leaders in Niger to restore constitutional order and reinstate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum lapsed on Sunday evening. ECOWAS is yet to make a statement on the next line of action, which includes military intervention. The grouping earlier stated that this would be a last option if all other political and diplomatic options fail.
Pope Francis said on Sunday that the Catholic Church is open to everyone, including homosexuals, and that it has a duty to accompany them on a personal path of spirituality, but within the frameworks of its rules. Francis, speaking to reporters on the plane returning to Rome from Portugal, also said his health was good following surgery for an abdominal hernia in June. He said his stitches had been removed, but had to wear an abdominal band for another 2 or 3 months until his muscles strengthened. Flying back from the World Youth Day Catholic Festival in Portugal, the 86-year-old Pope appeared in good form as he took questions for about half an hour at his customary freewheeling post-trip press conference, while seated at the front of the reporters section in the rear part of the plane. One reporter reminded him that during the trip, he said the church was open to everyone, and asked if it was not incoherent that some, such as women and homosexuals, did not have the same right and could not receive some sacraments.
An Israeli missile attack targeting vicinity of Syria's capital Damascus killed 4 soldiers, wounded 4 more, and caused some material damage, Syrian state media reported early on August 7th, citing a military source. At about 2:20 a.m. in the morning today, the Israeli enemy launched an aerial aggression from the direction of the occupied Syrian Golan Heights, targeting some points in the vicinity of the city of Damascus, the military source said. Syrian air defenses intercepted Israeli missiles and shot down some of them, the source added. Israel has for years been carrying out attacks against what it described as an Iran-linked targets in Syria, where Iran's influence has grown since it began supporting President Bashar al-Assad in the civil war that started in 2011.
If former President Donald Trump committed a technical violation of the Constitution, it doesn't mean he necessarily broke any criminal laws, John Lauro, Trump's criminal defense attorney, argued Sunday on NBC's Meet the Press. Lauro appeared to signal how he'd defend the former president in a trial that will stem from the 4-count criminal indictment returned last week by a federal grand jury that has been examining Trump's possible role in January 6, 2021 Capitol riot and his alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 election. Pressed by NBC's Chuck Todd about Trump's alleged pressure campaign to get former Vice President Mike Pence to reverse the election, Lauro claimed that Trump and Pence had mergely disagreed over whether a vice president could constitutionally take actions that could lead to presidential elections being overturned. A technical violation of the Constitution is not a violation of criminal law, Lauro contended, saying it was just plain wrong to suggest that Trump had pressed Pence to break the law.
A New York City cancer doctor killed herself and her baby in her home early Saturday, police said. Dr. Crystal Cassetta, an oncologist at Mount Sinai Hospital, shot her baby and then herself at their home in Thomas, a town about 50 miles northeast of New York City, around 7 a.m., New York State Police said. State Police said that the scene is consistent with a murder or suicide. It is unclear how old the baby was. Trooper Stephen Neville said she was not permitted to release more details, but said, "We know 100% without a doubt that it was a murder-suicide." Neville said the 911 call came from someone inside the residence who, upon hearing the fire gunshots, rushed to the baby's room thinking something had fallen. The unidentified caller heard a second gunshot before arriving at the room, broke down the locked door and found the dead mother and baby inside, Neville said. According to Mount Sinai's website, Cassetta treated breast, bone, gynecological, and gastrointestinal cancers. She worked as site chief of the Mount Sinai Queen's Infusion Center, a treatment center for cancer and blood disorders, and as an assistant professor of medicine in the hematology and medical oncology division at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai.
South Korea is preparing to evacuate tens of thousands of scouts from a coastal jamboree site as Tropical Storm Cannon looms, scouting officials said Monday. The World Organization of the Scout Movement said it received confirmation from South Korea's government of the early departure for all participants in the southwest country of Won. That means quickly moving tens of thousands of scouts, mostly teenagers, from 158 countries out of the storm's path. South Korea's weather agency said the region will be affected by the storm as early as Wednesday. President Yoon Suk-yeol's office said he called for contingency plans, which could include relocating them to hotels and other facilities in the country's capital, Seoul, and nearby metropolitan areas.
At least 2 people have died and more than 30 are believed to be missing after 2 ships carrying migrants sank off the Italian island of Lampedusa. The 2 boats reportedly left from the Tunisian port city of Sfax carrying 48 and 42 people respectively. Italian Coast Guard say they had recovered the bodies of an Ivory Coast woman and her 1-year-old baby. Separately, Tunisian officials say they found the bodies of 10 migrants on the beach near Sfax. The 10 people were found between Friday and Saturday during a windstorm that may have sunken their boat, the official told AFP news agency. Tunisian authorities say the port city is a popular gateway for migrants seeking a better life. Officials in Sfax, which is only about 80 miles from Italy's Lampedusa island, said they were working to identify the nationalities of the migrants, but they mostly came from sub-Saharan African countries. Italian authorities said they were investigating the incidents. Italy's Coast Guard said it had rescued 57 migrants when the vessels sank on Saturday, about 23 nautical miles southwest of Lampedusa.
At least 24 people died in a bus crash Sunday in the province of Azilal in central Morocco, marking one of the deadliest such accidents in recent years in the country, according to local authorities cited by Morocco's official news agency MAP. The accident happened when a minibus carrying passengers overturned a curve while en route to the weekly market in the small town of Demnate in central Morocco. Authorities, along with the Royal Gendarmerie and Civil Protection, mobilized to the scene to begin rescue operation. An investigation has been opened to determine the cause of the accident. A bus crash in August last year left 23 people dead east of Casablanca. In 2015, a collision between a semi-trailer truck and a bus carrying a delegation of young athletes in southern Morocco on Friday killed 33 people.
Torrential rains and heavy floods have ravaged southern Australia for the past 3 days, killing 1 person who was swept away by a quickly swelling river on Sunday, officials said. After the person fell into the river, firefighters, divers and water rescuers immediately began rescue operations, according to the press department of the Carinthia province. But rescuers were only able to recover the dead body. Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer expressed condolences on X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, saying that our thoughts are with the relatives of the persons killed. Since Friday, the southern Austrian province of Carinthia and Styria have been heavily affected by torrential rains, mudslides and rising rivers, with water surging into buildings. Several villages have been evacuated. Army soldiers are helping emergency personnel in the recovery efforts. They are pumping water, evacuating civilians and setting up emergency shelters. In total, 2,500 firefighters were on duty in Carinthia and another 2,500 in Styria, the Austria press agency reported.
Former U.S. President and Republican candidate Donald Trump gestures a Republican fundraising dinner in South Carolina in 6th August. Donald Trump has said he will ask the judge in his election fraud case to step aside on what he called very powerful grounds. He claimed that there is no way I can get a fair trial unless she does. His call came after the prosecution requested a court order that would limit what he can publicly say about the case. The judge, Tanya Chutkan, was appointed by former President Barack Obama. Trump took to his social media platform, Truth Social, on Sunday morning, describing the case as the ridiculous freedom of speech / fair election case, and saying that his legal team would immediately be asking for a recusal of the judge. He gave no details of his grounds for asking her to step down. Judge Chutkan previously ruled against Mr. Trump's efforts to shield evidence from the House January 6 committee and has faced frequent attacks from Trump allies in recent days. Mr. Trump has described her and the Department of Justice as highly partisan and very corrupt.
An Arizona woman is accused of using bleach to poison the coffee of her estranged husband, a member of the U.S. Air Force, over a period of several months, according to court documents. Melody Johnson was arrested on July 18th after her husband submitted a video to police allegedly showing her pouring a toxic substance into his coffee machine. The husband, who is not named in court documents, started noticing that his coffee tasted badly at the end of March 2023 while stationed in Germany. Johnson and her husband are going through a divorce but lived together with their child. The husband continued drinking the coffee for 2 to 3 weeks before using chemical testing strips to test the water in his faucet, which came back normal. When he tested the water in his coffee pot, it showed high levels of chlorine, court documents state. In May 2023, the husband set up a camera in the home which showed Johnson pouring something into his coffee pot. He pretended to drink the coffee until the family went back to the U.S. on June 28 because he didn't want to file a report in Germany, according to the complaint.
A white mother who was suspected for trafficking her biracial daughter in October 2021 by Southwest Airlines employees has filed a racial discrimination suit against the company. Mary McCarthy was traveling to Denver from Los Angeles with her 10-year-old daughter to attend her brother's funeral, she told NBC News nearly 2 years ago. Upon landing in Denver, McCarthy and her daughter were confronted by police officers because a flight attendant suspected her of potential human trafficking. A federal lawsuit filed Thursday in the District Court of Colorado accused Southwest Airlines of racial discrimination. McCarthy accused the airline staff of flagging her as suspicious based on a racist assumption about a mixed-race family. The officers began questioning Ms. McCarthy and made it clear that they were given the racially charged information that Ms. McCarthy's daughter was possibly being trafficked by her simply because Ms. McCarthy is white and her daughter is black, the lawsuit said.
During a conversation with Iowa voters on Saturday, Vivek Ramaswamy suggested canceling Juneteenth, calling it a useless holiday. Less than 2 months ago, however, he posted a video to social media celebrating the day. While breaking down his plan to institute a national voting holiday, the GOP presidential candidate proposed making space for the new holiday by canceling an old one on Saturday. Cancel Juneteenth or one of the other useless ones we made up, Ramaswamy said to an appalling crowd gathered at the Welding Company here. When asked by a news agency to clarify whether he thought Juneteenth is a useless holiday, Ramaswamy said, "I basically do." Less than 2 months ago, on Juneteenth itself, Ramaswamy spoke differently about the celebration.
Italy was the only G7 nation to sign up to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Now it says it wants to quit the plan and pivot back to. It has been a long sore spot for the Western Alliance. Italy, a key partner of the United States, cozying up to China, but now Rome is trying to back away without angering the Asian giant 10 times its economic size, and Washington will be watching the balance act closely as it pushes allies to reimagine their own delicate ties with Beijing. The US was deeply critical of Italy's decision in 2019 to become the only major Western economy to sign up to China's Belt and Road Initiative. The BRI, as it is known, is an unprecedented global infrastructure project that critics see as Beijing's attempts to gain influence abroad and make smaller countries financially dependent on Chinese investment. This week, however, Italy gave its strongest signal yet that it plans to pull out of the project.
A Chinese-origin man was given 3 months in jail on Monday for having racially insulted and kicked a 57-year-old Indian-origin woman in the chest in May 2021. Wang Zingfong, 32, had attacked Madam Hinducha Nita Vishnubai near the Northvale condominium in Chua Chu Kang housing estate on May 7, 2021 amid the COVID-19 pandemic, ordering Wang to pay the victim SGD 13.20 as compensation. District Judge Shaifuddin Saruwan stressed that racial and religious hostility can have their consequences in Singapore society. Before handing down the sentence on Monday, the judge said that a deterrent sentence is paramount in this case and noted that Wang committed the offenses in a brazen manner and had displayed a lack of remorse. After a 9-day trial, which started in January, Judge Shaifuddin convicted Wang in June of 1 count each of assault and wounding the victim's racial feelings.
The US has approved the first pill for postpartum depression. As per a report by BBC, the US Food and Drug Administrative (FDA) on Friday approved for the first time a pill to treat postpartum depression, a condition believed to affect around 500,000 women in the country every year. The FDA said zuranolone is the first oral medication indicated to treat postpartum depression in adults. Until now, the treatment for PPD was only available as an IV injection given by a healthcare provider in certain healthcare facilities, it added. Symptoms of postpartum depression can include sadness, loss of energy, suicidal thoughts, decreased ability to feel pleasure, or cognitive impairment, as per the FDA. Dr. Asima Ahmed, the Chief Medical Officer at Carrot Fertility, a healthcare company in Menlo Park, California, said that about 1 in 8 women experience PPD symptoms after a recent live birth, and among those reporting symptoms, 75% go untreated.
Israeli security forces say they have killed 3 alleged Palestinian militants in the north of the occupied West Bank near the Jenin refugee camp. The camp was the focus of a major military operation last month. It marks a further escalation in a wave of violence over the weekend. On Friday, armed Jewish settlers attacked a Palestinian village where a young Palestinian man was shot dead while an Israeli security guard was killed in an attack in Tel Aviv. In a statement, the army said the group was heading to carry out an attack and that an automatic rifle was found in their car. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised the security forces, saying, "We will continue to take action everywhere and at any moment against those who seek to attack us." The killings came the day after a Palestinian gunman fatally shot an Israeli security guard in Tel Aviv. Another guard shot and killed the attacker. You are watching the International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. Now the rest of our stories. The Philippine government summoned the Chinese ambassador on Monday to convey diplomatic protest over the Chinese Coast Guard's use of a water cannon against a Filipino supply boat in the disputed South China Sea, a Philippine official said. The Philippine military on Sunday condemned the Chinese Coast Guard's ship's excessive and offensive use of a water cannon to block a Filipino supply boat from delivering a new batch of troops, food, water and fuel to the Philippine-occupied Second Thermos Shoal in the disputed waters. The United States, the European Union and their key allies, including Australia and Japan, expressed support to the Philippines and concern over the Chinese ship's actions. Washington renewed a warning that it is obliged to defend its longtime treaty ally if Filipino public vessels and forces come under an armed attack, including in the South China Sea.
His social media account suggests that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is launching high-speed trains and robbing soldiers with foreign leaders as a powerhouse on the global stage and the face of an ascendant India. But that carefully crafted image, followed by millions, sit uncomfortably at odds with his silence on what's to come, close to a civil war engulfing India's northeastern state of Manipur. For 3 months, the strongman leader has been absent on arguably the worst ethnic violence ever seen in the remote state, where Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party is in power. Modi's role or lack thereof has sparked a no-confidence motion against him in parliament, where his government holds the majority. He will almost certainly defeat the effort this week, but proponents of the motions are betting that just bringing it up will force Modi to address the Manipur crisis from the floor of parliament.
At least 30 people have been killed and 100 injured when a train derailed in southern Pakistan, a police spokesman has confirmed. Several carriages of Hazara Express overturned near Sahara railway station in Nawash Bash, about 275 kilometers from the largest city of Karachi. Wounded passengers were moved to nearby hospitals. Rescue teams are trying to free people from the twisted wreckage. Accidents in Pakistan's antiquated railway system are not uncommon. Videos posted on social media show dozens of people at the site of the accident, with some passengers climbing out of the overturned carriages. One passenger who survived told the reporter he had seen many women and children lying on the ground. They were shouting and screaming, "I didn't know what to do. I filled my hands with water from this canal nearby and poured it on the faces of those who were unconscious, hoping they would regain consciousness," Nasir Ahmed said.
The eldest son of Cambodia's long-term ruler has been endorsed as the country's next premier in a formality confirming the transition of power. On Monday, Cambodia's king issued a decree stating Hun Manet would succeed Hun Sen, who has ruled for 38 years. Hun Sen announced he would step down just days after the 23rd July election, which critics said was not democratic. His party won all but 5 seats in parliament after the main opposition was barred from the vote. King Norodom Sihamoni issued the royal decree after Hun Sen sent a letter requesting the official note. His appointment still needs to be confirmed by Parliament on 22nd August, but it is expected to sail through a National Assembly where 120 of 125 seats are controlled by Hun Sen's Cambodian People's Party.
You're still watching the International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. Shortly, when we return from this break, we will go on to the conversation for today. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. And joining us on the conversation today is a postmodern political and social historian, Dr. Egba Minatuere. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's look at our issue for the conversation. And that's on Niger. Niger's airspace closed on Sunday, the day imposed as a deadline by a group of African countries for Nigerian military coup leaders to release power and reinstate the country's democratically elected president. As that deadline expired, Niger's airspace closed due to the threat of intervention from neighboring countries, according to a video statement by Nigerian coup leader Colonel Major Amadou Abdrahmane. The statement was played on state television Sunday. The military coup in Niger was launched in late July. President Mohamed Bazoum was seized by members of the Presidential Guard. National institutions were shut down and protesters from both sides eventually took to the streets, including thousands who support the military coup. But outside Niger, the coup leaders' actions were quickly condemned by the United States and some Western nations, as well as groups of Western African countries which threatened force. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, a regional bloc, warned that if the military junta does not stand down, it could face possible military intervention and give coup leaders until Sunday to cede power. Well, Sunday has come to an end and everyone is looking up to ECOWAS to see what the next line of action is going to be. And of course, the Nigerians have also taken a drastic measure to put a closure to the airways according to them, to prevent any form of military intervention. What exactly are we looking up to in this military junta in Niger Republic? What's your take on all of this?
Actually, these issues there are several dimensions. You can look, if you're taking from the angle from the ECOWAS, giving them an ultimatum of giving back power, ceding back power to the civilian rule, or you're looking at the Russia-Ukraine war on its impact on Africa, or you're looking at the spread or this new revolution that is going on, this coup from Mali to Burkina Faso, now it's creeping down.
Now let's just narrow it down to the ECOWAS and the Niger.
You can't. There is a dimension to it. Is that you just can't look at one angle alone, because when that was last month, 26th of July, when this coup took place, the Vice President of US made a phone call to the new President Tinubu. And nobody was there during the conversation, but you can see the step ECOWAS have taken. But you can start asking yourself, this is not the first. This is not just the first. There was a coup in Mali. What was the action of ECOWAS? Is that they are going to take a military action towards it? What about Burkina Faso? That was 2021, 2022, and now this is 23. So it's just moving from one year to another. So why is Niger so peculiar? Why is the ECOWAS giving a very strong command towards the Niger? Is it because of their location, or is it because of the expansion of the coups from one country? Because if you can trace it, you can look at, we know about the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
The Arab Spring started from just one country, from Tunisia, is moved and cut across all Arab regions. So we're looking at, is the coup going to influence, going to move down to Nigeria, which is a big party, or the big animal, or let me say the big person in the ECOWAS, because we sponsor ECOWAS, funded, established by Nigeria, funded it to almost let me say 60 to 70% of the fund coming from Nigeria. So it has a major, but that is why Tinubu itself is trying to lead this, giving them an ultimatum that you have to sit power back to civilian rule. But it's not going to happen.
But you think that it seemed like the ultimatum is just like pouring water on a bottle, and it's not having any effect on the Nigerians.
And that is what the matter is. It's not going to work. Because first, Niger is a sovereign nation. One, they are sovereign nation, and Why are you taking that step? That should be the last. It's not going to be an option, because today we can see what Mali and Burkina Faso have made a statement. And if ECOWAS try to take such action, that they would see as what? As a declaration of war. To what? To Mali and Burkina Faso, which are the number 3. To the rest of ECOWAS. Mention that, mind you, the ECOWAS, are they united? We are talking about Pan-Africanism also will come. Are you fighting your brother because of the influence of EU coming to play? Or is it Russia also trying to have a stronghold in Africa, because there's a looming of the Third World War?
But if this actually leads to war, where do you think that leaves us? If it's not properly handled, if it's not properly, curbed, where does that leave us? Do we stand a chance for anything?
It's not a war between Nigeria and Nigeria, first of all. It's a war between ECOWAS and the Nigerian government. But
and
it's
of course
going
Nigeria
to
is the first.
Yes, it's going to cause a lot of problems in Africa first. And that should not be the case, because if it happens, there's going to be instability in the sub-Saharan nations, and it are going to affect. Well, mind you now, Sudan are having issues. So there's an unrest. So we're talking about, again, some are start having issues of war. That means the entire Africa is going to have a big problem.
Now, you did mention the fact that why should our president let the influence of the European Union impact on the war in Niger? Do you think the cause of this coup is inspired by the influence of external bodies, or what is happening internally?
Well, the problem is that there is no nation that is, or no content can stand independent. So there is a room from external influence. But you can see that, just as they say, Russia and Africa have a summit in St. Petersburg, and later on you can see how these things are moving, and you can see Mali have already pledged allegiance to Russia, to support Russia, which is one of the first African nations to do that. And if Mali, I know that Burkina Faso are also in line with them, so you can see that there is a trajectory that is happening, that African nations are trying to look, for us, where are we going? Are we going to align ourselves with the West? We're going to align with Russia. And Russia also looking for brothers across the world, because they have been isolated. They only have some friends, China, they have some friends at least in Asia, that is Afghanistan. So what else? Even India has been careful to be too close to Russia. So they have been at the middle trying to make things easy. Even Turkey have been careful, because they are part of NATO. They don't want to be too close to Russia. So Russia are looking for ways, one, for the economy. Who's going to buy grain from them? Because now they sabotage Ukraine in Ukraine. So what about when the war broke out? If this war eventually happen, who is going to support them? Because mind you, there is a US base and Russia and French base, military base in Niger.
All right.
So if that is being the case, what about Russia? Where is a military base in Africa? So everybody is trying to study. This is cut across in different angles. So you don't even know from what angle. But mind you, Mali already have ties with the Wagner groups, which is sponsored by Russia government. So there's always this influence of several factors. That's why I say there's no single factor. But first, the Westerners, which already Nigeria will go into their neutral, but definitely Nigeria is already tied to the West than to Russia.
So invariably, the ECOWAS needs to tread with caution so that we do not break what we have in Africa.
I mean, we're barely stable as it stands.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we just hope that the ECOWAS will tread with caution, and all of this will come to an end pretty soon. We'll just keep our fingers crossed. This is much we'll take on International Tit-Bit today. Thank you, Dr. Minatere, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Valentina.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, our viewers, for being out there. I am Anita Obari. If you missed anything, you can follow us on our social media platforms: Twitter at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1. Or you can follow us on our website at atlanticnetwork.tv. Do remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress.